5 ways you can save money. Not you can or could, you will save money while flight training. Now, I want to open this with admitting that there are actually probably 500 ways you could save money while flight training. So what's up with this 5? Well, as a flight instructor, over a long period of time, I have found that not only these 5 ways I have written down right here saved people a lot of money and a lot of time, I also found that these 5 ways, if not understood and implemented and taken to heart, cost people a lot of money. And it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to be this way. Now, if someone shows up and says, Yoel, I'm aware of these 5 things, I know all the ways I could save money, but my life just doesn't allow me to do some of the things you suggest, and the only way for me to get my certificate is to just spend all this money on people, on whatever it might be. It's your money. You can do with it whatever you want. But if you are someone out there who's looking to shave some flight training cost, right? And you're not sure what else you could do. Maybe you figured I'll fly less. Maybe you figured I'll, do some, buy some courses online, whatever it might be. But you're not seeming to save that money. I think at the end of this video, the 5 things I will discuss on this video, I suspect might be helpful for you, and 3, maybe even 4 of them are things you probably never thought about. Maybe you did, which is amazing. So that's kind of the goal with this video. These are 5 things that if you only did these 5, in fact, if you did 2 of them, if you walked away from this video saying, I only like 2, I only like 1, I only like 3, whatever it is you're able to take to heart from what we're going to talk about, you'll save money. And you'll save time. So it goes like this. Let's just jump right into it with number 1. And then we'll take it from there. These are in no particular order. Maybe they are because I wrote them down that way. So maybe if they're stuck in my head that way, maybe there is an order to it. But I didn't intentionally write them down this way, and I'm not intentionally going to talk about them this way. So take them as you wish. Take them or leave them, whichever applies to you. Maybe you're already doing some of them, but here we go. Number 1. No one will make it happen for you but you. I'll say that again. No one will make it happen for you but you. So what do I mean by this? There's probably 100 ways to interpret what I just said. Let me share a little personal story from my own flight training experience. So when I showed up to flight school, I got my... or as far as my story is concerned, I got my private pilot certificate at a mom and pop shop. And then I went to a fast track program to get all the rest of my certificates and ratings. So I showed up with private and I started with instrument at this other school. So day 1 of instrument training, I meet my instructor. I didn't know who it's going to be. I met him day 1, and he pulled me aside, and he said, no, here's the thing. In hindsight, I'm fully aware that this message from him came, a lot of it had to do with him just not being the type of person who was interested in putting a lot of work in, right? It was just, in hindsight, I got to know him. That was the case. But day 1, I could just take his words at face value. I didn't know the guy. I didn't know anything about him. So he pulled me aside and he said, listen, I just want to kind of give you a heads up that throughout our training together, I'm not here to, spoon feed you, and I'm not here to do it for you. And, I'm just, you're expected to put in all the work on your own, at home, on your own time, whatever it might be. And I'm here to kind of, we'll fly together, and I'm here to fill in the gaps or answer any questions you might have. Now, when I heard that coming from a mom and pop shop, which was small knit, warm, friendly, had my instructor on text relationship, to hearing this, it caught me off guard. And initially in the moment, I thought to myself, whoa, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a journey, right? Because up to that point, I didn't know what it meant to do things on my own. I didn't know what it meant I'm expected to make things happen, right? Because no one really ever gave me that talk. And as time went on, to this very moment, I placed that as probably one of the top 5 things I was ever told as a student pilot. Out of all the things I was ever told, being told those words happened to help me out and added value and saved me time and money more than many other words people told me. And here's why. Because when I heard him tell me those things, even though I knew nothing about the guy, I just took it for what it was. I went home and I realized, and I told myself, I said, whoa, this is down to me. This is up to me now to make happen. I make or break this thing, right? I could make it happen or I could not. Meaning I don't have an instructor who is going to feed it to me. And it shifted everything in my head, and it changed everything. And from that point on, every check ride I had scheduled coming up, I made sure when I walked into that room, the majority of feelings I felt were excitement. And that's why I tell people, you're 100% in charge of how you're going to feel when you walk into a check ride. And not only in charge, but in control. And the way you're in control of that is how you choose to spend your time in the months leading up to it. You're in full control. You could choose to master a topic and walk into the check ride feeling excited to talk about it. Or you could choose to spend your time doing other things in flight training and walk into the check ride feeling nervous and anxious because you're not so sure of what you know or don't know. So my personal experience with no one will do this for me but me was this one flight instructor who I don't think he knows. I don't think I understood at the time, even when we ended up, when our time together came to an end. I got my instrument and moved on. Even when our relationship came to a natural end, I don't think at that point I even realized how helpful him telling me those things were. It took quite a while. And now the more I think of it, the more I realize how thankful I am to him that he laid it out to me. Sure, maybe he laid it out, some would say aggressively, some would say there's a nicer way of saying things. We could debate that for days. The reality is he let me know the expectations, and he let me know how this flight training gig works. And the way it works is no one's going to do it for me but me. So that was one of the best things I've ever heard. And that is what I'm telling you right now. Maybe your instructor never had this conversation with you. Maybe your instructor got you assuming that they could do a lot of it for you. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. One of the things I try and make very clear with every one of my students is that if there was a switch that I could switch, turn on or off, and make them a pilot, I would on day one. I really would. Sometimes it's painful seeing what students go through, including what I went through to get this certificate. It's just a lot of new stuff. But unfortunately, the reality is there's no such switch. And sadly, or not sadly, however you want to look at it, it just comes down to you. So no one will do this for you but you. How does that tie into saving money? Well, the more you take what I just said to heart, that it's down to you. How you're going to feel on your check ride is up to you. How much you're going to know or not know on your check ride is up to you. And forget check ride. Check ride is a moment in time. How safe or not safe of a pilot you will be for the rest of your life is up to you. Shocking, I know, but it's up to you. And student pilots especially have a hard time wrapping their head around this concept, because when I heard these words from my instructor, at least I had my private, so I knew somewhat about the flight training industry. But if you tell those things to brand new private pilot. They're thinking to themselves, what do you mean? This whole world is a language I don't speak, concepts I've never heard of, and you're telling me it's all up to me? Like, that's a very weird thing to hear. But that's not what it means. It means that you will spend time with your instructor learning all these new things. That's your instructor's job, right? By telling my students that it's up to them to make things happen, it doesn't mean I work any less hard. It doesn't mean I spend and devote any less time. It doesn't mean that I don't go beyond what I could get away with in order to try and push and help my student to the furthest degree that I possibly can. Sure, of course. But doing all those things, no matter how good I do those things, still doesn't make it happen for my student. My student, at the end of the day, has to make it happen for my student. So there's a balance there, right, as an instructor. And that's kind of, for those of you maybe getting your CFI certificate, there's a lot of book stuff that you learn when you go through CFI training. But then there's the whole real world out there. And it's learning these balances, right? It's learning this reality that I could be the best CFI on the planet, and yet I could have a student who just won't make it happen, right? And there's a balance, there's a distinction between you doing your best job as a CFI and your student not stepping up to their plate on their part. And not doing their fair share. It's just the reality of things. And I wish it was different. So as a student watching this, assuming you're going through training yourself, no one probably laid it out to you this way. And now that I have, I hope you take this whole no one will do it for you but you to heart. And it will save you money. It will save you money because you will now treat your own time at home differently. You will view your own power differently. Because maybe up to now you thought that it's only your instructor who has control over how you're going to feel on your check ride. Or it's only your school that has control over when you'll be ready for your check ride. But that's not true. It mostly has to do with you. So I don't want to harp on this more than I need to. I think you get the point. Remember, no one is going to make this private pilot thing happen for you but you. People are going to be resources. They're going to help you, right? Think of it as ATC when you're flying along. ATC is a phenomenal resource in an airplane. Oh my gosh, I'm talking with someone, direct communication, who has access to the world. I might not have access to the world from my plane, but I'm talking with someone who does, right? They have internet, they have people, they have knowledge, they have connections in different airspaces. They know I'm talking with someone who's talking with everyone. That's a phenomenal source. But no matter how great that source is, they can't, for example, make my landing happen for me. Like when it comes to plane stuff, it's down to me as the pilot. So I want you to understand the difference between having your CFI as a phenomenal resource, and I hope they're great and I hope they're helping you, to thinking that your CFI is going to make these things happen for you. There's a difference between the two, right? Use your CFI, use ATC, take advantage, pick their brain, learn from them. But you're going to make your check ride happen. You are in control of how safe or not safe of a pilot you will be for the rest of your life. I don't care if it's day one right now and you're starting out and this sounds like an intimidating thought. Think about it. Take it to heart and start viewing everyone around you as resources and yourself as the ultimate one who's going to make your life happen, including getting your private pilot certificate. Okay, so I hope this resonates. I hope it makes sense, and I hope it's helpful because it was extremely helpful for me. Okay, number 2. This video might be longer than I thought it would be. Let me sip on my coffee. Oh, it's so good. Okay. And like I said before, if any of these things, if you hear me talk about these things, not just this, anything I ever talk about, right? I'm not in the business of shoving things down people's throats. I'm in the business of sharing my thoughts and opinions And the business you should be in is hearing them and taking them in or tossing them out. That's your business, not my business. I don't shove things down people's throat. So if you hear something that I'm talking about out of these things and you go, you know what? I appreciate that. Might be helpful for some, but it's not helpful for me. I want you to be that student, right? There's a saying, it goes, be a student, don't be a follower. I don't want you to be a follower. I want you to be a student. I want you to study what you hear. And if it makes sense for you and you could resonate with it and you could go, oh yeah, no one ever told me what Yoel just told me. And I think that could serve me in my own life, in my own training. I want you to take it to heart and I want you to run with it. Or if you hear it and you go, I don't think there's room for that thought in my life. There might be room for that in other people's life. Then I want you to do that. I want you to study and be a student of what we're talking about. So here we go. Number 2, good performance in the airplane begins with good knowledge on the ground. And I'll say it again. It seems like I'm repeating everything twice. Let me go with this one too. Good performance in the airplane begins with good knowledge on the ground. So what do I mean by this? Let's think of all the things you're expected to do on the check ride in the airplane, not in the classroom and the oral portion of the check ride, but in the airplane. Take anything. Steep turns, okay? There's 2 parts to steep turns. There's the knowledge, understanding, the knowing how to do it, and then there's the skills or the execution, the doing part of it. So there's the knowing and the doing. The doing with steep turns, yes, you need an airplane for it because, people say you could chair fly, which you can. In a moment, we'll talk about chair flying. Chair flying is really cementing your knowledge. But as far as the skill is concerned, you can't maintain altitude when you chair fly, right? So we'll talk about that. I want to make that clear. But there's the doing and there's the knowing and there's the doing. Every properly executed doing, this is just another way of saying what I just said, is backed by good knowledge. If I step into an airplane and I go do steep turns and I don't know how to do steep turns, how do you think my steep turns will look? Not so great. Or a very other common example is I get into a plane to go do steep turns and I think I know how to do steep turns, but my idea or knowledge of how to do steep turns is wrong. How will my steep turns look then? So what am I getting at? Any good airplane performance begins with good knowing, begins with good knowledge. It is so common for new student pilots to show up to flight training and not make this connection in their head. And they start thinking of maneuvers, anything that's done in the plane as a plane thing. And they think of all the other stuff as a at home on their own time thing. Like my FAA written test, that's my own knowledge time thing. I do that at home. I don't do it in the plane, right? But they don't make the connection that all the plane things require just as much home knowledge time, learning knowledge. And because they don't make this connection, they study all these other things at home, but they're not studying forward slips because they think that forward slips are only something to do in the plane. They are to practice and execute in the airplane, but they are really to learn and understood mentally how it works. What in the heck are we doing with a forward slip or steep turns? It's meant to be learned on the ground. So what did I call it? Good performance in the airplane begins with good knowledge on the ground. Understanding this will save you a buttload of money. Not only that, not understanding, and by the way, it's true with all these things, not understanding these things will cost you a lot of money. Because if you don't care to sit at home and study your steep turns and chair fly steep turns, again, for the knowledge side of things, sure, you can't maintain altitude. You can't hone your skills sitting on a chair at home. We all understand that, and you're not expected to. But you could hone and cement your knowledge of a maneuver right? If you're trying to figure out, well, how do I recover from a power off stall? You could sit in a chair at home and run through the steps mentally. Sure, you can't actually execute it because you're not in a plane and you're not stalled. And then you get into the plane and you put what you practice at home to work. But still, cementing your knowledge is unbelievably important. So good airplane performance begins with good knowledge. I've seen this time and time again. Students who understand this concept and don't just wait for the plane to show up, for the plane time to show up in order to do plane things. They understand that plane things begins in their own kitchen at home on their own time. They understand that good steep turns are a result of a solid understanding of what are we even doing with steep turns. What's the purpose of it? How to execute it properly. I talk a lot in my videos about constants and variables. Steep turns are a big one that involves constants and variables. Students who don't understand that concept and try and do steep turns are then shocked. Why can't I figure this thing out? So there's a lot of things that, unless you understand, will continue to cost you a lot of money. And that's just a shame. It doesn't have to be this way. So good performance in the plane, executing things to standard or even better, begins with you spending time on them on the ground. And here's the thing with ground time or home study time. It's free. It's free. All it takes is your time. It's free, right? The more time you put into it, the better off you'll be when it comes to the maneuvers. Oftentimes I do mock orals with students all across the country who are getting ready for a check ride. And we talk about a lot of knowledge stuff, the requirements, what certificates do you need, all the good stuff. They know everything. And then I get talking with them verbally about maneuvers. And all of a sudden they realize, we just entered into an area where they never really talked about verbally. They always did with their hands and feet in the actual airplane. And that's a shame. That's a no good situation. Every CFI out there should test and make sure that their student not only knows how to perform the maneuver or execute it, but is also able to talk about it and own it and know what's going on, right? Good execution begins with being able to talk about something. What are my chances of driving from here to the Santa Monica beach if I'm unable to explain to you in plain English what my plan of getting there is? Kind of doesn't work. So if you're in flight training right now and you're struggling with landings or steep turns or turns around a point, ask yourself, are you able to talk about it? Forget doing it. Are you able to talk about it? Are you able to sit with your instructor and draw it out on the whiteboard for your instructor while they're sitting in the student seat and you're at the whiteboard? Are you able to walk yourself through it verbally? If you can't do that, what are the chances of you actually executing it properly in the airplane? This is no different than a taxi instruction. When you get a taxi instruction, many students oftentimes hear it, boom, start taxiing. There's no taxi chart up, nothing. What are the chances of you figuring out where they want you to go if you haven't figured it out on the chart? If you don't know what it looks like on paper, how do you expect to actually get out there and taxi that instruction in real life? It doesn't really make sense. So there's an order to things. Every good, solid, correct taxi instruction begins with it doesn't have to take long, 2 seconds, with a quick review of the taxi diagram, the chart. Oh, they want me to go to this runway from these taxiways. Okay, boom, let's go. It made sense on paper. But if I look at the taxi diagram, the paper, and I just can't make sense of it, and I still start taxiing, that's insane. How will I make sense of it in real life if I can't make sense of it on paper? How will you figure out how to fly these things perfectly or properly if you can't even talk about them and explain what you're doing? Okay, it's just human stuff we're talking about. We happen to be talking about planes, but this is true with everything. It's true with getting myself to the beach in Santa Monica. It's true with anything else in life. So good airplane performance begins with good, solid knowledge on the ground. And every single thing we do in the plane, you could, if you held to it, try and explain to someone verbally. And I highly suggest you do that, because the more you'll find this to be interesting, and this is why they say CFIs or teaching in general is the best form of learning. Why do you think that is? Because what does a CFI do? A CFI has gone from the realm of doing, executing, into the realm of speaking, talking, teaching. And nothing cements things better than actually speaking it and doing it. Speaking it and saying it and teaching it. So you don't have to be a CFI to take advantage of that law of nature. You could be a student pilot. The more you talk about steep turns, the more you could explain to your friends what a steep turn is, what we're looking to do in it. You'll be amazed how your performance of the steep turn goes up. So again, this is a free thing you could do, and it will save you a lot of money, and it will also cost you a lot of money if you keep waiting to be in the airplane to do airplane things. Okay. Let's see. Another sip of coffee. Well, we're on to 3. How long has this been going on for? I don't have a timer. I'll make it quick. Okay. Number 3. Here we go. This is a big one. I tell this to people and they go, whoa, Yoel, I never thought about this. I never thought about this. Well, hopefully now you'll think about this. It's very simple. It's so simple you might miss it. So I want you to pay close attention. It goes like this. Schedule training time with yourself. I'll say it again. Schedule training time with yourself. So here's a concept I want to introduce to you, and I want you to kind of see how far you can run with it. Yes, you have your CFI through training. But what I want you to do is I want you to start imagining a version of yourself. This will sound crazy, but stick with me. I want you to imagine a version of yourself that is your own CFI. So I want you to try and imagine your face and put the title of CFI on it. I don't care where you're at. I don't care if you just started private pilot. I don't care if you don't know what an aileron is. I want you to imagine you're a CFI of yourself, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you every week, I don't know if you have a calendar or however you keep track of your lessons with your actual instructor and with the flight school, I want you to go into that calendar and I want you to schedule out time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. It could be 2 hours a week, an hour here and an hour there. But I want you to actually schedule that time with the CFI. And I want you to go study with them. I want you to train with them if you already reached the solo phase. But if not, I want you to study with them at home. But the most important part of what I'm saying here is, because you might say I'm already studying, I want you to actually schedule and set aside time with yourself, okay? And this is extremely important. How often, looking back on a week when it comes to training, did you find that you perfectly made every single lesson you had scheduled with your instructor? You were there on time. Even if you had things going on in your life, you put them on hold. You told your friends, hey, I can't hang out tonight because I have a flight lesson. And you somehow got yourself to the school. And yet, if you look back at that same week, that same very week where you were very reliable here with the flight school and your instructor, you realize, whoa, I didn't get a lot of study time in. It's very interesting, right? And why is that? You're a reliable person. You made every single lesson. You showed up on time. You put things aside on hold, right? Maybe there's this girl you want to date, and you said, hey, I can only date you tomorrow because I'm going flying tonight. You probably did that. And yet you realize there's not a lot of study time that you put in. It's very interesting. Now, why is that? Well, it is because the time with yourself in that week was valued by you less than the time with your instructor and the airplane. And there's 2 reasons for this. The big obvious one is the time with your instructor and the airplane cost you money. The time with yourself was free. As humans, it's natural, don't be hard on yourself, to value things that cost us money more than things that we get for free. It's just the way the world is. But what we could control and what we could do, even though you won't go now spending money to study with yourself, what you could do and what I want you to do is what I call this third one. And that is schedule training time with yourself or study time with yourself, whatever you want to call that. And even though you won't pay you for your time, you could schedule you for your time. I know this is it's probably blowing your mind, this concept. I never thought of putting myself down in my calendar to spend time with me and go over material, right? It's a weird concept. It is weird. I acknowledge and I agree it might be weird. But it's amazing how when you schedule time with you, not just with you, anything we schedule, we're a lot more likely to show up to and make happen. Okay. Now, there still might be times where you'll go, it's just me. I'm not paying money. No one is missing anything if I don't show up. I'll study tomorrow. Sure, you'll probably do that. But the chances of you actually putting your life aside and honing down and spending time on the material and studying will go way up. And I've seen people who started scheduling time with themselves. I schedule time with myself. I schedule time with myself to do various different things with only me in the picture, right? Because I know that the way my brain works, if it's in my, I'm a big calendar guy. I juggle a billion different things. If I don't have my calendar, I'd be all over the place. But if I put it down on the calendar, I'm 100 times more likely to make happen than if I don't put it down on the calendar. That's just the reality of things. So schedule training or study time with yourself. I promise that will make a difference for you. And ultimately, it will save you money. Okay, this might be such a simple thing. You go, now, try it. If you have a calendar, I want you next week, whenever you're watching this or this week, to go ahead and block out an hour or two time, and you could call it anything you want, training with whatever your name is, with yourself. And I'd be very curious to see if that makes a difference as far as your study habits are concerned. So, okay, number 4, we're almost there. We're almost there. Here we go. Number 4. One more sip. You know me at this point. Oh, coffee. Wow. Okay. Incredible. Okay, this is a big one, number 4. This is one that it's big for the following reason. It's big because there's not one black and white answer. What I'm going to talk about in a moment, you will need to figure out for yourself what the right amount is. And it goes like this. Here's number 4. Fly the right amount for you. I'll say it again. Fly the right amount for you. So what do I mean by this? You know you. Okay, the best example I could think of when it comes to fly the right amount for you is, let's think of food. You know your body better than anyone else on the planet. I know my body better than anyone else on the planet. So if you asked me, Yoel, how much food should I eat for lunch? I want you to take a guess right now what the proper and correct response for me or from me should be. There you go. That's the right answer. The right answer is, well, I don't know how much you could eat or don't eat. I don't know what types of foods make you feel in certain ways. I don't know anything, assuming I just met you. I don't know anything about your body. Some people could eat a tremendous amount of food and still be hungry. Other people could, they feel stuffed after a few bites, which I'll never understand, but that's just the reality of things. Some people are lactose intolerant. Other people don't eat meat. Other people, they get headaches when they eat whatever. So if you ask me that question, I would have to switch it back around and ask and tell you, listen, you know yourself best. You know your body best. You're probably the one to figure that one out. And the same is true with how much or often you fly. There's no set number to this. I've seen people who flew 5 days a week, hardcore. They hit it. They put their whole life on hold. They just hit flying. And it served them good. It served them good. They were in the pool imagining flight training as a pool. They were swimming all the time. They were just breathing and living it, and it did them a lot of good. It saved them a lot of time. I also seen people, if they just think of flying more than twice a week, it's a thought that would give them a headache. So what's right? There's no right or no wrong. So fly the right amount for you is important for many reasons. Specifically with this video, I'm talking about ways to save money. And here's how it ties into saving money. And here's also why I did not say fly less. Because you might be sitting there going, well, Yoel, if this video is about saving money, wouldn't flying less save me money? And the answer is not necessarily. Because you got to think of the long run. You got to think of the big picture, long term. If you currently are flying 4 days a week, yes, cutting it to twice a week will save you money right now. But it also might lengthen your training until you're check ride ready by 8 months, maybe, if you need those 4 times a week to keep fresh. Because maybe 2 times a week, by the time you show up next week, you lost it all. Sorry, and now we're starting from scratch. So it depends. So I don't want you to think short term here. I want you to think big picture. You know yourself best. And the reason I say fly the right amount for you is because some of you watching this, the answer to saving money will be to fly more. And the reason you've been spending so much money and time on it so far is because you are not flying enough. And for some of you, for others, it might be fly less. Your brain is fried. It's overloaded. You're not learning anything new. You're tired. You're beat. You're starting to hate it. And it's costing you a lot of money. So maybe for you, the answer is fly a little less. So again, there's no right or wrong here. For some of you, it will be fly more. For others, it will be fly less. And for some of you, it will probably be keep it exactly where it's at, right? But that's for you to figure out. So I hope the example I gave helps you understand kind of where I'm going with this. Just think of food. I'm sure there's food in your life that just doesn't make you feel good. And there's food in your life that makes you feel great and full. That's kind of where what we're shooting for with flight training. I want you to tweak around with the amounts and figure out the sweet spot for you. How many times a week, meeting my instructor in flying, do I feel like I learn the most and like I still enjoy it? And like I still look forward to showing up to the next one. And like I don't feel unbelievably beat and tired. And like I don't feel like I'm no longer learning anything new. That's for you to figure out. No one could give you that answer. But I promise you, if you figure it out, you'll save a lot of money. And as with any of these other things, if you don't figure it out and you simply just either fly the amount your instructor wants you to fly, or just fly a lot because you think that the more the merrier, it will cost you a lot of money. And that's just the reality of things. So you got to do this due diligence and homework. And if no one ever talked to you about this, I'm glad I am now, giving you the ability to think about it and to realize that for some, more is hurtful and harmful and not good. And for others, it's what they need. And I don't know where you fall. You do. So do this, figure this out for yourself. And I promise it'll make a difference when it comes to how much money and time you're spending on flight training. Okay. Whoa. We reached number 5. Number 5 is my personal favorite, which is why I kept it to number 5. Oh, coffee. It's my favorite drink ever. Okay, here we go. Number 5. Oh, number 5's a good one. Number 5 is a good one. Number 5. Man, if there's one thing, that switch I was talking about before, if there was one switch I could ask for and turn on, it would be number 5, because it would save student pilots so much time, money, and frustration and just unnecessary stuff. So here we go. Number 5. It goes like this. Develop a solid relationship with less than ideal performance. I'll say it again. I want you to cultivate a beautiful, warm, friendly, healthy relationship with less than ideal performance. So what do I mean when it comes to flight training? There's two types of student pilots. I'll just draw them out right now to give you an example to make a distinction. The first type of student pilot, they both started the same day for the sake of this conversation. And now they're both a month in and they're both learning how to land. The first student pilot figured out how to land, landed, got all excited, and then showed up 4 days later for another lesson and just can't figure out how to land. Meaning it's the classic 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Or 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that student pilot is sitting there in the plane. The lesson is not over. And they're beating themselves up internally, not externally, not loud. It's just in their own brain. They are not nice to themselves. The other student pilot understands that they're human, understands how the process of learning anything works, understands the concepts of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And even though they figured out how to land a plane 4 days ago, they understand that by landing a plane once, it doesn't mean I now am a pro airplane lander. And it doesn't mean that I won't ever again have a not the prettiest landing. And because this student understands all these things, when they botched that landing 4 days later, their brain is reminded of all these pieces of information. Okay, the fact that you landed 4 days ago doesn't mean you're a pro. It takes time, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Just keep at it. You're doing great. You're moving forward. And as a result of that, they beat themselves up less, if at all, in comparison to the first student. And if I asked you, what's the difference between these two students? Here's 2 people who started the same day. Again, hypothetically, landed the same day, let's say 3 weeks in, they both landed a plane, and then 4 days later, they both had a lesson, and they both messed up that landing. One's completely beating themselves up, and the other is like, hey, I'll get it next time. What's the difference between these 2 people? So while there's probably many differences, I could tell you for certain, as someone who sat next to a bunch of different types of student pilots who had different temperaments and whatever you want to call it, I could tell you the one thing that I've found to be true every single time that's different, the difference between these student pilots, is their own relationship with their own less than ideal performance. The student pilots who beat themselves up and are hard on themselves could be great people. They could have great relationships in life with people around them. Absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. But there's one specific type of relationship that they never figured out. Oftentimes, they don't even know exists. Maybe you're watching this right now and you never thought to yourself that it's in your control to develop a great relationship with your own less than ideal performance or your own mishaps or mistakes or whatever you want to name it. Maybe you never knew that it's a type of relationship you could cultivate. So here I am telling you, not only is it, but it's a vital one that you do. The faster, the better when it comes to flight training, because it will be a miserable journey if your relationship with bad performance with yourself is not so great. Now, an easy way to bring this alive for you, so you understand basically a way for me to inflate what I just said, is let's imagine that this relationship I'm talking about is not with yourself. Let's imagine it's with your instructor who's sitting next to you. And let's imagine every time you had less than ideal performance, your instructor beat you up. Not physically, but just berated you and yelled at you, or all the things that you do with yourself in your own brain. Let's imagine they were doing to you. I want you to imagine how pleasant your flight training experience would be. How much would you look forward to showing up to the next lesson? Well, I could tell you, if you did show up, which I probably wouldn't, I'd look for a different instructor. But if you did show up, your motivation to show up would be very, very low, if at all. But if you think about it, you're doing the same thing to yourself, assuming you don't yet have a good, solid relationship with your less than ideal performance. You're doing the same thing to yourself every single time, maybe 5 times a flight. And you just keep taking it. You just keep taking it. You keep taking it. You keep allowing yourself to beat you up when you don't do something to perfection. Now, I could talk about this for days, but in the name of wrapping this up, here's how understanding this will save you money. The thing that happens in the plane in a lesson, it could be on the ground, but in the plane especially, because there's so much going on and it's busy. The thing that happens in the plane when a student starts beating themselves up is, and I'm talking now with my CFI hat on, the moment a student falls into that trap, learning begins to decrease in the flight deck. Learning does not exist. Learning cannot exist in an environment in which someone is beating themselves up and there's an enormous amount of frustration because the student is completely distracted with themselves. Okay, they're completely consumed with the crosswind landing that they did not perfectly handle. So learning diminishes to probably 0 sometimes. There's very little room for the brain to take things on. I want you to think of learning like fire. Learning is fire. Fire could only exist where there's oxygen. Learning could only exist where there is oxygen for learning. So what is oxygen for learning? Well, that's a student who feels calm, happy, excited, rested, fed, and all these other positive things, you could name it. And you could probably imagine, oh yeah, when I'm feeling those things, I learn better. You think? Yeah, you do. Or to the contrary, when you're not feeling those things, you don't learn much. It's just the way humans work. This has nothing to do with airplanes. So from a CFI perspective, if the student hasn't developed a solid relationship with less than ideal performance, and they beat themselves up 5 times a flight or 1 time a flight, now they're blowing money while no learning is taking place. They might as well stay home because the learning has no oxygen. The more you understand this, the kinder you could be to yourself when it comes to, flight training is like learning a language. Imagine you started learning a new language. I'll use me for an example so it's not personal. Imagine I started learning a new language. I don't know, Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Imagine I started learning a new language, Spanish. And a week in, 2 weeks in, I had a conversation with a Spanish-speaking person. And I just messed a certain sentence up. I said it all backwards and upside down, and I got it wrong. Imagine me beating myself up over it. Like, that's literally what happens when student pilots show up to training and beat themselves up over stuff. There's no room for it. There's no need for it. Your instructor doesn't want you to. Now, again, this entire number 5 thing we're talking about here is strictly your relationship with your less than ideal performance. I'm not even talking about your instructor's relationship with your less than ideal performance, because that should be phenomenal. Your instructor's relationship with your less than ideal performance should be excellent. And if it's not, get a new instructor, right? Because you're paying this person to exercise compassion and patience and kindness and to motivate you to keep doing better. You're paying them. You could argue, hey, I'm not paying myself. You're right. But you should still be kind to yourself. So I'm not even talking about your instructor. Hopefully your instructor's relationship with your less than ideal performance is excellent. And if it's not, get a new instructor. I'm talking about your relationship with your less than ideal performance. You gotta develop it. You have to be aware of it. You have to feed it. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to understand that training is a process. It takes time to become good at anything. And remember, when you beat yourself up, learning stops happening. And at that point, you're wasting money, you're wasting avgas, you're wasting fuel, you're putting time on the airplane for what? For nothing. You're not learning anything. I want you to have a great relationship with your mishaps, which is why in the videos, when you watch my videos with my students, right, I always say good learning. Everything's good learning. I don't care what happened, it's good learning. Listen, unless we're dead or in a coma, we could learn stuff from what we do. Now, this is not a green light to go crazy and do things you shouldn't do, but mistakes happen. We're not perfect, but it's up to us to walk away from anything. If it's a bad landing, if it's a crosswind that wasn't handled right, it's up to us to choose, am I going to learn from it, or am I just going to beat myself up over it? It's completely up to you. So I want you to develop a solid relationship with your not so pretty work. Okay, that's another way to put it. And the better this relationship of yours with yourself is and becomes, you'd be amazed. Your flight training experience will transform because you're minimizing the amount of time in the flight deck where learning is not happening. And now you're letting learning to happen for the entire lesson or for the majority of it. Okay? And that's kind of the idea with that. There we have it. Those are my five ways to save money while flight training. Again, like I said in the beginning, there's a million ways. I don't specifically know on top of my head. I'm sure there's a book out there that says 30 ways to save money in flight training, and they're all true, probably. These are the 5 I find that student pilots miss for some reason. Maybe no one ever talked to them about it. Maybe no one ever discussed this with them. And oftentimes it is what it is. People show up for flight training, and the instructor, many instructors think that I'm just here to teach you how to land. I'm not here to teach you mindset. I'm a big mindset guy. I'm not here to teach you how to think of things, right? You're not paying me enough for any of that. I just want to teach you how to land and go home. And the student is filled and left with an enormous amount of frustration. And sometimes they're lost, right? And it's unfortunate. It's sad. I'm not here to blame instructors or anyone, but mindset is everything in most things in life, not just flight training. And so the better my students' mindset could be, the more successful they are. And I've seen it time and time again. And if I could help them with that, then heck, hopefully this is helpful to you. So there you have it. 5 ways, save money. Take whatever you feel like you could fit into your life and implement. I don't want you to just copy like a monkey because you'll said it, I'll do it. Maybe one of these 5s doesn't apply to you. Great. But whatever, if they all apply to you, implement them. And I promise you'll see a difference happening quickly. And you'll save money ultimately and time. And I'll end with this. Your entire flight training journey will be a fun one. It will be a journey that you could look back on and smile rather than a journey you look back on and go, man, I'm glad that's over, right? Because it's unfortunate. It's part of your life. It's part of your life. You know, it's part of your life right now. So I want you to enjoy it. Until the next time, fly safe. As always, if you have any topics or questions you want me to discuss, there's an email in the description. Shoot me an email. I'm going through, again, these 5 ways of saving money. Tens of questions that come into me are about money and about how can I make training, because that money is a thing that talks to many people. So I kind of made this. Oftentimes, I look at a theme. So if there's a bunch of questions coming in, rather than answering every single one, I could go, oh, there's a theme here of maybe a topic that's misunderstood, or maybe there's something that 10 people want me to talk about, so I'll make a video about that. But nonetheless, if there's anything you want me to talk about, any questions you want me to answer in these videos, send me an email. It's in the description below. And in the subject of that email, just so I could separate between this stuff to other emails. In the subject of that email, I want you to write Ask Yoel. Ask Yoel, 2 words. Ask Yoel, Yoel, Y-O-E-L. And that way I could just see the email and quickly separate between the two. So there we have it. Until next time, fly safe, and I'll see you on the next one.